What's up, guys? My name's Paul. Welcome to the channel. The Jaguars this season have the potential to sign a star wide receiver talent. But first, we need to ask ourselves the question, do they really need to? Let's talk about it. All right, guys, so I don't know about you, but historically, I have been quick to shoot myself down at these random ideas of potential free agents that we could sign. And it's really fun to go on Twitter and X and just scroll and see what other fans are saying. Some other names that people are throwing out there. But historically, I've always shot it down because it's just like, oh, well, bulky. And so we're going into 2025, and that's not the case. We don't have to worry about bulky. I don't have to hear about arm length one more time. So that's really exciting to me. So I wanted to sit down and just make this video and really chit-chat with you guys and see what you guys think. And I've got three names that I feel like would be a major upgrade, and that's Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and Chris Godwin. And really, I think any one of these three would be a massive upgrade to our offense. I think Kirk is a great receiver. I really do. I think that some of these names on this list would be more of a slight upgrade, but it's fun to just talk about, and I'm curious to see what you guys think. All right, so first let's recap our current situation that we're in. We've got Brian Thomas Jr., best rookie receiver this past year. He is the future of this team. He is our future wide receiver one moving forward. We've got Christian Kirk, and we've got Gabe Davis. That's really who we're talking. We also have got Parker Washington, who I think is great, but we're going to stick with those three here. I would also include Evan Ingram in this receivers room just because of the sheer volume in the passing game, the role that he plays. So, to recap, we've got BTJ, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Evan Ingram. Strengths and weaknesses of this group. I mean, clearly our strength is Brian Thomas Jr., his ability to separate, get open, catch crazy catches. I mean, this guy is anything that you want to see in a receiver. Brian Thomas has showcased that in the very lackluster team-wise, lackluster season. Frankly, he was the only bright spot on the field this year. So we've got that. Christian Kirk, I think, is a good receiver. Like, I really do think Christian Kirk, when healthy, is a great receiver. Now, he's had quite a bit of time off the field injured. There was quite a few balls that were dropped or hit him in the hands that he should have caught. But all in all, I think that he's a really good receiver. And I think that the Whipple hire, bringing him in, familiar face from Arizona, I do think that if we keep Kirk, we're going to see an improvement. Gabe Davis, man, that's one of those free agent moves from last year that really makes you scratch your head. And it frankly just hasn't panned out. I think that on paper last year going into it, I was optimistic. You know, Gabe Davis did have some good moments in Buffalo, but nothing has really settled in here in Jax, and it just hasn't panned out. So it's been solid at times, but the inconsistency in our wide receiver room has just been too up and down. Up until now, we hadn't really had a number one receiver. And now that we have Brian Thomas to build off of, I think moving forward, regardless of if we bring in a free agent or not, things are going to be better. This new offense that Cohen's going to bring and just another year together, I think that it's going to make a big difference. So let's talk about Cooper Kupp. He lines up in the slot. So this situation, I think, would be like if we move on from Kirk and we're able to get Cooper Kupp, and LA has already said that they are able to pay part of Kupp's deal. So from a cap perspective, if this move makes sense, I think that Cooper Kupp is still an elite receiver. Yes, he's getting up there in age, and he, like Kirk, has been banged up. But we're just a couple years removed from his Triple Crown season. I mean, the guy is still, in my mind, a top 5 slot receiver. And I do think that he, being familiar with Cohen's offense, I mean, this is like, I would give it a B. it's a slight upgrade if you can save some money and make the move. I would not be opposed to Cooper Kupp over Christian Kirk. And again, I think Christian Kirk is a great receiver. I think that he would fit in well in Jacksonville, again, just because of Cohen's ties back to LA. We'll see who the offensive coordinator is, but it's looking from what I'm not a insider. I'm a fan like you guys. I look at Twitter, I listen to 1010, and that's pretty much it. I go to games, I watch the games, but I am by no means an expert on any of this or qualified to give you any insight. This is just my take and my perspective as a fan. But I think that he would fit in great. I think that the offensive coordinator is likely going to be Nate Shiel from what I've seen on Twitter. Shielhouse, sorry. And so, yes, I think that this move would make sense. I think that it would fit. And if it came down to dollars and stuff, like, I don't see why not. I'm not opposed to it. Let me know what you guys think. Are we keeping Kirk or should we get Kupp? All right, next up on the list, we're going T. Higgins. This is the only one on the list that I think is a no-brainer. T. Higgins is still really young. He has not had any injuries. Like, he is an amazing receiver. And, obviously he wants the bag. And I would give it to him. The big question is, right now in Cincinnati, he's kind of playing that number 2 role to Jamar Chase. And so if he were to come to Jacksonville, I would anticipate it being a similar role with Brian Thomas Jr. So that's the only hesitation there is like T. Higgins has been pretty vocal about wanting to be the guy, wanting to be the number 1 guy. And so I don't know that it makes a ton of sense given that fact. But T. Higgins, he's got history with Trevor Lawrence. They played together at Clemson. T. Higgins is elite. He is a great receiver, great jump ball. Like he's a clear upgrade to our receiver room. Again, I don't really know what the Kirk situation is going to be. I don't know X's and O's enough to know like how that would line up. But if you somehow could just give away Gabe Davis and keep Kirk and have Kirk, T, and BTJ, that would be like the best receiver group in the NFL, in my opinion. But that's probably not going to happen. Probably not likely. So yeah, I still think it would be a massive upgrade over Kirk to bring in T. Higgins, trade Kirk, and give him the bag. Honestly, like we've got 50-something million in cap space this year, so I don't see why not. The alternative really is just like draft a guy young. There's plenty of other holes. I don't think that in the grand scheme of things, like I don't think this would be my first priority for the team. But if we're just throwing out ideas, I'm not opposed to it. Everything's on the table. Why not? So, yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Is this crazy talk? Is this a pipe dream? I think a little bit. I think so a little bit. But, no. All right, Chris Godwin is another name to be on the lookout for. Chris Godwin, a little bit younger than I thought, actually. I thought he was like 31, 30. But he's only 28. He's coming off an injury this year, but again, great receiver. This year he had 50 receptions for 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. Go-to option for Baker when healthy. And I think that this whole list, really, it's like any one of these guys, you play them opposite of Brian Thomas Jr., and there's going to be production there. It just is a matter of does it make sense. I think that Chris Godwin, knowing Cohen's offense that he wants to install, I think that could be a huge asset to, help BTJ. But other than that, it's really just a question of do you want to spend money on a guy? I'm kind of in the camp of drafting the guy from Arizona and just building on what we've got. I think that Parker Washington at time has shown that he's a decent receiver. There's depth there. I think that Brian Thomas is obviously a star in the making. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like, really, we got to ask, do we need to move on from Kirk? Do we need to sign a guy in free agency? Do we need to upgrade at this position? I really want to know what you guys think. That's really the whole reason I started this channel. I'm no expert. I'm not qualified. I'm not an analyst. I'm just a fan like you. And I really just wanted to start this channel to start engaging with other Jags fans. I need more Jags fans in my life, So I really wanted to just start building a community where people can talk about the Jags and hear your guys' thoughts, honestly. I've got a couple buddies that are Jags fans, but for the most part, when I hit the fantasy group chat, it's not the same. So I need some more Jags fans in my life. So please, let's start talking about it. Do we need to upgrade? Do we need to sign a free agent wide receiver, or are we fine with just drafting a guy and building on what we started with Brian Thomas? I think that's where I lean. I think that I'm in the camp of let's just draft a guy. I think that, frankly, our team has got bigger needs to address, corner, O-line, D-line. So I think that that's probably what we're going to do, is draft a guy and just sign free agents elsewhere. And honestly, I don't hate that. I think that we've got some pieces. I think the grand scheme of things, Cohen's offense is going to be a huge upgrade in and of itself. But yeah, would love to know what you guys think. Do we need to go get one of these guys, or do we just roll with what we got? Thank you guys. Check out this video from last week about Tony Baselli being named the Executive Vice President of Football Operations. I think he's going to save our franchise, but that's just me. Duval.